This month I have a segment for you about tactics for fighting bridge battles. I want to thank Mike Palumbo for inspiring me to work on this one. I'm going to start with the best case scenario, where you have an ideal assortment of fighters. That means you have both right-handed and left-handed shieldmen, pikemen, archers, and healers. Mages and Florentine fighters and hand-and-a-halves are also important, but the tactical plans I'm going to explain don't depend upon them. To start with, you want to line up your shieldmen at the front of your line with enough space between them for your pikemen to be able to fight. The pikemen should be a half step behind the shieldmen so that they are not exposed to attacks. You will want a lefty shieldman for your front right corner so they can move more easily to block for the pikemen to their left. Many teams just fill in the spots behind their front line with little real planning. While this may look like a good setup, there are some obvious vulnerabilities. Enemy archers can pick your front line apart by just spreading out and firing into your line from both sides. To defend against this, you need to box off your corners. To do this, simply position righty shieldmen along the left side and lefty shieldmen along the right side. Each shieldman along the edge should hold their shield out to protect the side and back of the shieldman in front of them. The only danger in setting up your formation like this is that shieldmen along the edge have occasionally been hip-checked off balance by the pikemen inside the box and have fallen off the bridge. That's actually happened to me. A half step behind your pikemen, you want to place your healer. They can keep the pikemen going, and if your shieldmen need a leg healed, they should be able to stretch the leg backwards to make it easier for the healer to reach them. If you have a spellcaster that has both healing and armor repairs, all the better. Your archers can fan out along the far edge of your river and are free to move in behind the stack if that will give them better shots. They can even replace fallen pikemen, though you should always put pikes in the front lines if you have any fighters capable of wielding them. If you ever lose a front line shieldman, your edge shieldmen are positioned so they can slide in and fill in the gap quickly. The fallen shieldman gets dragged back out, and if they are able to return to the fight, they can fall in line on the appropriate edge for their handedness. You can use extra fighters, Florentinesmen, and anyone who will not be on the front line as blockers and arrow gatherers for your archers. You can even set up standing shields that your archers can hide behind, though some marshals may ask teams to not do so in the interest of having this even if playing field is possible. Now that you have your ideal bridge unit set up, let's talk tactics. The position you are at on the bridge has a dramatic effect on the way you position the fighters on your team, and you can use bridge position to your advantage in a number of ways. When you are in the center of the bridge, the setup is pretty much as I've described it. Your shieldmen are there to protect the pikes are there to kill the enemy. The healers are there to keep the shields and pikes up and fighting, and the archers can move around to get the best shots they can and chip away at the enemy's forces. One word of advice I would offer to your shieldmen is that they should try very hard to remember that they are not there to hit anyone unless they have a really good shot that does not expose them to enemy attacks. One way I like to think of it is that a shieldman gets an assist for every kill their pikeman gets. That might help to keep their role in perspective and stop them from doing anything stupid that will get themselves killed. If your bridge unit is pushed back to the near end of the bridge, you can fan out your shields and create what's called a kill pocket. You suddenly have many more angles for your forces to attack from, and anyone that wants to move forwards can be attacked from all sides. This works well if you have enough fighters left, but if your unit has been decimated, the enemy will probably break through somewhere. This is an especially good place to use your archers, as they will have a close and easy shot on your enemy's flanks and can do a lot of damage so long as you keep the enemy from pushing off the bridge and into your backfield. Forming a cup or a kill pocket is also a highly effective way to defend a castle. You give up the ground right inside the door, but if you have enough long weapons, it is virtually impossible for an attacker to gain and keep that spot. The added benefit of having walls where attackers might have been able to fight or jump over the edge of the bridge makes a kill pocket even more effective when defending a castle. One of my favorite memories from my years in the realms was one year when Riasa fielded the strongest unit for the South in the North-South War. We had an excellent line of shieldmen, both lefties and righties, and a good-sized group of archers. That year we had managed to convince both Machta and Quick, two of the greatest pikemen in the history of the realms, to join our unit. For one of the small unit bridge battles, we used the following battle plan. We hid our archers behind our stack so that even if the enemy knew how many we had, they would not be focused on them. We told our archers to hold their fire, saving their arrows during the early stages of the fight. We met the enemy unit at the middle of the bridge, and we began the fight. I was in my usual spot as the front left corner shieldman on the front line, blocking arrows and pike shots for Machta or Quick. I don't remember who was next to me. Early on, we had been trading attacks for a few minutes, and things had begun to heat up. I knew that I would eventually get tagged in the leg. At that point, I had planned to drop to my knees and start calling for the line to fall back in the most panic-stricken voice I could manage. Our unit would move back towards the edge of our bridge, and once we reached the edge, our archers would fan out and just pepper the enemy with arrow fire from both sides. Not only did it work, but I managed to do such a good job freaking out that Quick really thought I was losing my shit in the middle of the fight. The plan worked perfectly, and we took out the strongest northern unit on the field with ease. My bridge battle units always tended to have a slow and methodical approach, grinding the enemy unit down with a strong defense and a lot of patience. That isn't always the most fun way to run a bridge, though, and sometimes a slow and steady fight will actually work in the enemy's favor. The second most memorable bridge battle I ever fought was against Wrathkill, back when Old Riasa was at its peak and Emperor Artax had the most supporters he was ever able to gather together. Artax and many of his people were necromancers, so instead of raising his dead in combat, he would turn them into zombies and undead. We fought their squad in a bridge battle early in the day, and we had a good squad that year, with Machta again on pike and another good line of experienced shieldmen. We were well disciplined, and we kept a tight formation. The battle lasted a long time, and while it seemed like we were doing well, they kept on getting up again and again as we killed them. If we had moved forward more aggressively on the bridge and made an effort to pull their dead over to our side or push them into the water, we might have won. But in the end, they overwhelmed us. I knew when I looked to my right and saw our last pikeman fall that we were done for. All in all, we probably made 2 or 3 times as many kills as they did, but it wasn't enough. I took some consolation in the fact that we came close to completely draining their team of an entire day's worth of castings of necromantic spells. It was a victory for Wrathkill, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. I've always loved bridge battles more than any other type of conflict. The controlled confines of a bridge provide a great opportunity to implement strategies and tactics, and they reward teams that are skilled, organized, and disciplined. Maybe it's the fact that a team with larger numbers won't just be able to overrun your flanks. Maybe it's the fact that so much of the action is focused into a small area of the battlefield. It could be the fact that bridge battles can stretch on for so much longer than so many other kinds of fights, sometimes lasting an hour or more. For whatever reason, I've always thought that bridge battles are one of the greatest rushes you can possibly have out there on the battlefields of the realms.